Frankenstein, 2025, is a sprawling, emotionally rich, gothic science fiction drama film written and directed by Guillermo del Toro, one of the most acclaimed filmmakers of his generation and a lifelong admirer of Mary Shelley's classic 1818 novel Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus. Del Toro finally brought this project to life after decades of planning, initially attempting to make it with major studios before landing the project at Netflix, where he was given the creative freedom to reinvent the story with his own voice and visual sensibility. The film stars Oscar Isaac as the obsessive and brilliant scientist Victor Frankenstein and Jacob Elordi as the creature, a role that has already earned Elordi critical acclaim and awards recognition, including Best Supporting Actor at the 2026 Critics' Choice Awards for his empathetic portrayal of the misunderstood being. Del Toro's Frankenstein draws directly from Mary Shelley's original novel while imbuing it with his own deeply personal interpretation. He has described the novel as his Bible, a source of inspiration that has influenced his entire career, and this adaptation reflects his lifelong engagement with themes of creation, empathy, otherness, and the pains of existence. The director has said he wanted to make a version that was faithful to the spirit of Shelley's work but also deeply emotional, focusing not merely on horror or spectacle but on the inner lives of his characters and the tragic bond between creator and creation. The story centers on Victor Frankenstein, a driven and obsessive scientist who defies the laws of nature in his quest to conquer death. Haunted by grief and consumed by his own ambition, Victor assembles a being from disparate dead body parts and, through forbidden and mysterious scientific techniques, brings that being to life. Where many past adaptations have focused solely on the terror of the monster, Del Toro's film places equal emphasis on the creature's perspective, capturing his developing consciousness, yearning for connection, and profound suffering as he confronts a world that recoils in fear at his existence. As the creature learns about humanity, its beauty, cruelty, rejection, compassion, and indifference, the narrative becomes a meditation on what it truly means to be alive, raising questions about identity, agency, loneliness, and forgiveness that echo throughout the rest of the film. Jacob Elordi's interpretation of the creature is central to this emotional complexity. In press events and interviews, Elordi has spoken about how the role connected to him personally, describing the creature as a vessel for deep emotional expression and arguing that the character's journey reflects universal struggles with rejection and self-discovery. Audiences and critics have responded strongly to his performance, noting that Elordi brings a soulful intensity to the role that makes the creature not merely a figure of horror but a tragically sympathetic force at the heart of the film. Oscar Isaac's portrayal of Victor Frankenstein is equally layered, presenting him not as a one-dimensional villain but as a complex and flawed genius whose hubris and grief are inseparable from his brilliance. Isaac has described the role as one of the most powerful experiences of his career, working with Del Toro to explore Frankenstein's inner turmoil, self-justification, and eventual confrontation with the consequences of his work. Supporting performances from Mia Goth as Elizabeth Lavenza, Felix Kammerer as William Frankenstein, Christoph Waltz as Henrik Harlanda, Charles Dance as Leopold Frankenstein, Lars Mikkelsen as Captain Anderson, and others add period richness and depth to the world the film creates, giving weight to every emotional turn the story takes. The production itself was a major undertaking. Filming took place primarily in Toronto from February through September 2024, with additional location work in atmospheric European settings such as the Royal Mile in Edinburgh and historic houses in England, helping evoke the film's 19th-century Gothic milieu. Del Toro, known for his meticulous visual design and preference for practical effects, crafted sets that feel both grand and decayed, reflecting his thematic interest in the beauty of ruin, a visual language that mirrors the film's narrative about creation and destruction. The cinematography by Dan Lostson and a haunting score by Alexander Desplat further enhanced the film's emotional potency. The first trailer and teaser for Frankenstein were released in spring and summer 2025 through Netflix's promotional events. These teasers highlighted the film's gothic visual style, the storm-tossed laboratory scenes, and the dynamic between Victor and the creature, often accompanied by Del Toro's own reflections on the project's personal significance. The official full trailer, released later in 2025, showcased the richly detailed production design, the creature's emergence into the world, and thematic flourishes suggesting that the film would be as much about internal struggle as external horror. Frankenstein premiered at the 82nd Venice International Film Festival on August 30, 2025, where it received one of the longest standing ovations of the event, a powerful testament to its resonance with early audiences and critics alike. The response at Venice highlighted the film's emotional depth and Del Toro's achievement in transforming a well-known Gothic tale into something fresh and affecting. Following Venice, the film was shown at major festivals including the Toronto International Film Festival and the BFI London Film Festival before moving toward general release. The release strategy blended traditional theatrical windows with modern streaming distribution. In the United States and select international markets, Frankenstein opened in limited theatrical release beginning October 17, 2025, including a few IMAX screenings that allowed audiences to experience the film's rich visuals on the big screen. This theatrical run served as both an awards-qualifying push and an invitation to experience Del Toro's cinematic world in community settings. Shortly thereafter, on November 7, 2025, the film was released globally on Netflix, making it widely available to subscribers around the world. Critical reception has been broadly positive, with many reviewers praising the film's ability to blend Gothic horror aesthetics with heartfelt drama and strong performances. On review aggregator sites, the film has earned high marks for its imaginative reinvention of familiar material and the emotional richness it brings to the Frankenstein mythos. Reviewers have noted that while it surprises some audiences expecting a straightforward horror film, Del Toro's emphasis on character and psychological depth has helped distinguish this adaptation from previous cinematic versions. Part of what makes Frankenstein stand out is the way it interprets and expands upon the narrative arcs from Shelley's novel. In contrast to the book's tragic and unresolved ending, Del Toro's version introduces moments of reconciliation and reflective closure, particularly in the film's final sequences where themes of forgiveness and inner peace are explored in ways that depart from the source material but maintain its emotional core. Such narrative choices signal Del Toro's confidence in treating classic material not as static text but as living art through which modern audiences can explore timeless human questions. From its inception to its release, Frankenstein represents not just a cinematic adaptation but a lifetime's engagement with one of literature's most enduring tales. Del Toro's version has been described by many as a masterpiece of Gothic storytelling and a reinvention that honors the original while speaking directly to contemporary concerns about identity, belonging, creativity, ambition, and the deep costs of playing God. With strong performances, elaborate production design, and a narrative that brings both horror and humanity into sharp focus, Frankenstein, 2025, offers a richly detailed experience that satisfies both fans of the classic novel and newcomers alike. When examining Frankenstein, 2025, in the context of previous cinematic adaptations, it is clear that Del Toro has consciously crafted a version that is both faithful to the spirit of Mary Shelley's novel and innovative in its exploration of character psychology, morality, and thematic depth. The 1931 Universal Frankenstein film, directed by James Whale, established much of the visual iconography associated with the story, including the monster's iconic appearance, the laboratory setting, and the use of electricity as the force of animation. However, the 1931 film and many subsequent adaptations often emphasized horror and spectacle over the emotional and philosophical dimensions of the narrative. Del Toro's adaptation consciously diverges from this tradition by presenting the creature as a sentient, emotionally aware being, exploring its intellectual and ethical development rather than depicting it primarily as a source of fear. This approach highlights the moral responsibility of the creator and the social consequences of rejection, shifting the focus from mere horror to tragedy and existential inquiry. Similarly, Kenneth Branagh's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, 1994, sought to return to the novel's narrative, portraying Victor as a complex figure and emphasizing themes of creation and responsibility. While Branagh's film incorporated aspects of Shelley's text, critics often noted that the creature was underdeveloped in terms of emotional and philosophical depth. Del Toro's version remedies this by allowing the creature to function as a fully realized character, exploring its interiority, emotions, and moral reasoning. By granting the creature agency and intellectual depth, the 2025 adaptation reinforces the central ethical questions of the novel, the consequences of creation, the moral obligations of the creator, and the capacity for empathy in the face of difference. The visual language of the 2025 film also distinguishes it from prior adaptations. Del Toro's use of Gothic architecture, chiaroscuro lighting, and dramatic color palettes creates a world that is at once realistic and fantastical, mirroring the psychological and moral states of the characters. The icy Arctic sequences, with their desolate landscapes and overwhelming natural forces, underscore the existential and ethical stakes of Victor's ambition. In contrast to earlier films that relied heavily on studio sets and black-and-white imagery, Del Toro's adaptation leverages modern cinematography and visual effects to immerse audiences in a world that feels both historically grounded and psychologically resonant. Every set, prop, and costume detail has been meticulously designed to reinforce thematic elements, from the decay of Victorian interiors symbolizing moral decline to the creature's expressive prosthetics emphasizing the humanity within its monstrous form. Symbolism permeates the narrative, adding layers of meaning to character actions and events. Electricity and fire are recurrent motifs, representing the boundary between life and death and the power of creation. Mirrors, reflections, and shadows appear throughout the film, highlighting questions of identity, self-recognition, and perception. The creature's repeated encounters with mirrors illustrate its struggle to understand itself and its place in the world. Gothic architectural spaces, with their oppressive and labyrinthine design, reflect the psychological entrapment and moral ambiguity faced by both Victor and his creation. These symbols serve not only as visual storytelling devices but also as metaphors for philosophical inquiry, drawing attention to the ethical, emotional, and existential questions at the heart of the narrative. Narrative techniques in the film reinforce the thematic depth and emotional resonance of the story. The use of framing devices, such as the Arctic expedition, allows for reflection and foreshadowing while situating the story in a broader existential context. Deliberate pacing alternates between moments of intense action, quiet reflection, and philosophical dialogue, giving viewers the space to engage with the moral and emotional dimensions of the plot. Parallels between Victor and the creature, as well as repeated motifs of creation, rejection, and consequence, create a sense of narrative symmetry that underscores the film's exploration of responsibility, ambition, and empathy. Del Toro employs foreshadowing, visual parallels, and juxtaposition to emphasize thematic connections, reinforcing the idea that the consequences of human action extend far beyond the immediate moment. The philosophical significance of the 2025 adaptation is also notable. Del Toro explicitly engages with questions of ethics in science, human ambition, and social responsibility. The film examines the tension between intellectual curiosity and moral obligation, exploring what it means to act responsibly when creating life or wielding power over others. Victor's ambition, while admirable in its intellectual scope, ultimately demonstrates the dangers of unchecked desire and the failure to consider ethical consequences. The creature's journey, by contrast, emphasizes the importance of empathy, recognition, and the human capacity for moral reasoning. By juxtaposing these two narratives, the film invites viewers to contemplate the moral dimensions of creation, the obligations we have towards sentient beings, and the broader implications of exclusion, fear, and neglect. Culturally, the film has sparked reflection on contemporary issues, despite being set in a 19th-century context. The creature's marginalization mirrors ongoing societal concerns regarding exclusion, prejudice, and identity. The film's focus on emotional intelligence, ethical responsibility, and social engagement resonates with contemporary audiences, allowing a historical narrative to address modern concerns about the consequences of ignoring difference or failing to exercise moral judgment. In this sense, the 2025 adaptation functions not only as a retelling of a classic story but also as a reflective commentary on social, ethical, and psychological issues relevant to modern life. The film's release and reception further reinforce its significance. Premiering at the Venice International Film Festival in 2025, it received critical acclaim for its performances, visual artistry, and emotional depth. Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi's portrayals were widely praised, with critics noting the psychological complexity of Victor and the empathetic representation of the creature. The limited theatrical release, followed by global streaming on Netflix, allowed both cinephiles and general audiences to experience the film's visual and emotional richness. Discussions around the adaptation have centered on the ways in which Del Toro has reinterpreted classic themes while maintaining the ethical and philosophical core of Shelley's novel, sparking conversations about literary fidelity, artistic innovation, and the enduring relevance of the Frankenstein mythos. In terms of technical achievements, the film is notable for its cinematography, production design, sound, and score. Dan Lostson's cinematography uses light, shadow, and composition to emphasize mood, character psychology, and thematic resonance. Alexander Desplat's score functions as an emotional guide, highlighting tension, empathy, and narrative progression through orchestral motifs. Production design meticulously recreates period-specific environments, while simultaneously imbuing them with symbolic meaning. The creature's prosthetics and makeup, combined with nuanced acting, create an entity that is both believable and deeply expressive, emphasizing the film's commitment to character-driven storytelling. Sound design, from the hiss of electricity to the howling Arctic wind, further immerses viewers in the narrative world. Finally, the 2025 adaptation of Frankenstein emphasizes the enduring relevance of Shelley's novel. By combining philosophical inquiry, emotional complexity, visual innovation, and social reflection, Del Toro demonstrates how a story written over 2 centuries ago can remain both compelling and resonant for contemporary audiences. The film challenges viewers to reflect on creation, responsibility, empathy, and the human condition, while also providing a visually and emotionally immersive cinematic experience. It stands as a testament to the power of adaptation to reinterpret classic literature in ways that are artistically bold, emotionally impactful, and intellectually stimulating. The third act of Frankenstein begins with the mounting consequences of Victor Frankenstein's unchecked ambition, as the ramifications of creating life spiral into irreversible tragedy. The film opens this act with a foreboding storm, symbolic of the moral and natural upheaval Victor has caused. Dark clouds swirl over the countryside, and lightning flickers across jagged peaks, foreshadowing the climactic confrontation between creator and creation. Guillermo del Toro uses these environmental elements not merely as spectacle but as visual metaphors for chaos, guilt, and the destructive consequences of hubris. The cinematography emphasizes low angles and wide shots, placing Victor's frail, desperate figure against towering skies, visually emphasizing the enormity of his transgression and the futility of human arrogance against the forces of life he has attempted to manipulate. The creature, now fully aware of his power and autonomy, begins to confront Victor directly. Early sequences in the act show the creature observing Victor from a distance, contemplating revenge yet torn by the remnants of loyalty and curiosity instilled during his creation. These sequences highlight the creature's internal moral conflict. He is neither entirely innocent nor irredeemably vengeful, but a being shaped by isolation, fear, and rejection. Guillermo del Toro's use of close-up shots during the creature's reflection conveys subtle emotion, the twitch of a facial muscle, the intensity in his eyes, allowing audiences to witness his struggle for identity, justice, and meaning. The musical score during these moments is minimalistic but emotionally potent, blending low strings and resonant tones that echo the creature's loneliness and burgeoning determination. One of the pivotal confrontations occurs when the creature ambushes Victor within the ruins of a long-abandoned cathedral, a location chosen for its Gothic resonance and visual symbolism. Crumbling stone arches, shattered stained glass windows, and puddles reflecting flickering candlelight create a haunting atmosphere. Here, Victor's moral and psychological collapse is fully realized. He is physically frail, mentally frantic, and emotionally paralyzed by guilt and fear. Guillermo del Toro stages their interaction with fluid camera movements, shifting between sweeping overviews that emphasize the architectural grandeur and claustrophobic close-ups that capture the intensity of their exchange. Dialogue is charged with philosophical and ethical undertones, echoing Shelley's exploration of responsibility, creation, and suffering, yet expanded to explore emotional depth and contemporary moral reflection. As the confrontation escalates, the creature articulates his anguish, recounting experiences of isolation, human cruelty, and the yearning for recognition. The film accentuates these monologues with deliberate pauses, ambient sound, and subtle musical motifs, allowing the audience to empathize fully with the creature's perspective. Scenes of rain streaming through the broken cathedral windows, the echo of dripping water, and the occasional distant thunder reinforce the tension and Gothic atmosphere. Guillermo del Toro ensures that horror arises not just from the creature's physical presence but from the emotional and ethical intensity of these exchanges, creating a psychological resonance that aligns with Shelley's original philosophical inquiry. Victor's response during the third act is marked by both desperation and obsession. He attempts to reason with the creature, pleading for mercy, asserting authority, and ultimately acknowledging his moral failure. These moments highlight the central theme of the creator's responsibility toward his creation. Cinematography often frames Victor as smaller and more vulnerable than the creature, visually representing the reversal of power and emphasizing the moral consequences of his hubris. The visual and auditory design during these sequences underscores Victor's frailty. Wind whips through the cathedral's arches, structural debris shifts ominously, and the low, rumbling score mirrors his inner turmoil and fear of imminent destruction. The creature's revenge is both deliberate and tragic. He does not seek mere destruction but aims to confront Victor with the ethical ramifications of his actions. Del Toro stages sequences of pursuit through craggy mountains, dense forests, and icy landscapes, employing sweeping aerial shots to evoke scale, danger, and the relentless passage of fate. The use of natural elements, wind, snow, and lightning, serves not only as cinematic spectacle but as symbolic extensions of the creature's emotional state, mirroring his fury, sorrow, and yearning for acknowledgement. These sequences are meticulously choreographed, balancing action and introspection, ensuring that even moments of physical conflict retain thematic and emotional weight. The climax of the film occurs in a visually and emotionally charged sequence atop a storm-battered peak. Here, Victor's collapse, physical, psychological, and moral, is complete. The creature confronts him, not only with power but with profound sorrow and moral reasoning. Guillermo del Toro employs a combination of extreme close-ups, high-contrast lighting, and dynamic camera movement to heighten intensity. Rain and wind lash both characters, creating a sense of chaos while the musical score crescendos with strings and percussion, amplifying the emotional stakes. The creature's dialogue during this climax echoes Shelley's original novel but expands upon it, articulating contemporary reflections on societal rejection, personal responsibility, and the nature of existence. Victor's final moments are depicted with a mixture of remorse, despair, and recognition of his hubris, aligning with the novel's themes while providing a visually immersive and emotionally potent cinematic experience. Following Victor's demise, the creature experiences a complex mixture of grief, liberation, and reflection. Guillermo del Toro emphasizes his emotional journey through visual symbolism. The creature's silhouette against a sunrise or amidst the remnants of the storm conveys both mourning and transcendence. He stands among the natural world he has long observed from a distance, reflecting on identity, humanity, and the consequences of creation. This final act of the creature's arc emphasizes themes of moral awareness, justice, and existential contemplation, portraying him as a fully realized being whose tragedy extends beyond vengeance. The film closes on a lingering note of ambiguity, leaving audiences to ponder questions about life, ethics, and the human condition, echoing Shelley's original philosophical exploration while adding a modern cinematic sensibility. From a technical perspective, the third act showcases the film's mastery of visual and auditory storytelling. Cinematographer Dan Lawson employs a mix of naturalistic lighting, dynamic camera movement, and carefully composed frames to create tension and emotional resonance. The editing rhythm varies according to narrative tension. Long, reflective takes underscore introspective moments, while rapid cuts amplify sequences of confrontation and moral reckoning. The sound design integrates natural elements, diegetic effects, and a haunting score to immerse viewers fully in the Gothic, morally charged world of the narrative. Costume and makeup reinforce character evolution. Victor's appearance reflects his deterioration, while the creature's design subtly evolves to highlight his intelligence, emotional depth, and moral complexity. The third act also invites reflection on the differences between Del Toro's film and Mary Shelley's original text. While the novel emphasizes the creature's eloquence and moral reasoning primarily through epistolary accounts and Victor's narration, Del Toro provides direct visual and emotional access to the creature's experiences. This adaptation choice amplifies audience empathy, allowing viewers to witness the creature's intelligence, suffering, and moral reasoning firsthand rather than through secondary accounts. Additionally, Del Toro expands the emotional resonance of the climactic confrontations, using environmental symbolism, visual motifs, and cinematic techniques to heighten thematic impact. The moral and ethical questions posed in the original novel are preserved but rendered through a sensory and emotional lens that speaks to contemporary audiences. Following the creature's initial awakening, the film dedicates significant time to exploring its earliest experiences in the world, portraying each moment with painstaking detail to emphasize both its intelligence and vulnerability. Initially, the creature experiences sensory overload, with every sound, shadow, and movement prompting both curiosity and fear. The narrative lingers on these early moments, using visual storytelling to convey the creature's gradual understanding of its environment. Through observation and trial, it learns basic survival skills: how to move without injuring itself, how to gather sustenance, and how to hide from humans whose presence evokes terror and aggression. These sequences are interwoven with moments of quiet reflection, allowing the audience to witness the creature's internal struggle as it begins to grapple with the reality of existence, the concept of other beings, and the first inklings of self-awareness. The creature's first encounters with humans are filled with tension and misunderstanding. Each attempt at connection is met with fear, violence, or outright rejection, reinforcing its sense of isolation and amplifying the emotional stakes of the narrative. Del Toro emphasizes that these encounters are formative, showing how society's inability to accept the creature shapes its emerging worldview. Rather than portraying the creature as inherently violent, the film presents its aggression as a reaction to repeated trauma and rejection, highlighting the moral responsibility of those who create or judge life without compassion or understanding. In these sequences, the audience begins to feel empathy for the creature, recognizing it as a fully realized sentient being rather than a simple embodiment of horror. As the creature begins to understand language, it discovers literature, poetry, and human history, mirroring the development described in Shelley's original novel. These moments are portrayed with a sense of reverence, showing the creature grappling with the complexities of human culture, morality, and emotion. It reads about love, justice, cruelty, and virtue, and through this process begins to construct its own understanding of right and wrong. This intellectual awakening parallels its emotional development, allowing the audience to see the creature not as a monster but as a moral and philosophical entity capable of thought, reflection, and self-expression. Victor, meanwhile, is depicted as increasingly consumed by guilt and obsession following his initial rejection of the creature. He isolates himself from family and society, working tirelessly to perfect his experiments and avoid the consequences of his hubris. These sequences show Victor in moments of both brilliance and despair, as his obsession blinds him to the emotional needs of those around him and heightens his moral failings. His interactions with Elizabeth, William, and his parents underscore the human cost of his ambition, reinforcing the story's ethical concerns and highlighting the tension between intellectual pursuit and moral responsibility. The creature's growing understanding of the world leads it to attempt communication with humans, seeking companionship and empathy. Its first deliberate interaction occurs with a family living in isolation in a remote cottage, where the creature observes their daily life and begins to understand human emotions more deeply. It secretly helps the family by performing small acts of kindness, such as gathering firewood or tending to the garden, revealing a capacity for empathy and moral reasoning. When the family eventually discovers the creature, however, fear and prejudice dominate their reaction, culminating in violent confrontation. These events are pivotal in shaping the creature's moral and emotional trajectory, demonstrating how repeated rejection transforms its grief into a desire for justice and, ultimately, vengeance. Victor's realization of the consequences of his abandonment coincides with tragic events affecting his family. William's death, indirectly caused by the creature's search for recognition and understanding, serves as a critical turning point in the narrative. Victor's grief is compounded by guilt, and the tension between creator and creation escalates into a moral and emotional confrontation. The film emphasizes that Victor's intellectual achievement cannot shield him from the ethical implications of his actions, and the narrative portrays the destructive potential of human ambition when divorced from empathy and responsibility. The film's midsection explores the evolving dynamic between Victor and the creature in depth. After initial attempts at reconciliation, the creature articulates its demands for recognition, companionship, and moral accountability. It seeks a partner, another being constructed in its image, to alleviate its profound loneliness. Victor, initially resistant, debates the ethical implications of creating a second life, weighing personal responsibility against the moral consequences of further experimentation. These sequences highlight the film's central thematic concerns: the responsibilities of creators, the ethical limits of scientific inquiry, and the consequences of isolation and neglect. The narrative tension escalates as Victor's internal conflict mirrors the creature's external struggle. While the creature grapples with societal rejection and emotional pain, Victor faces mounting pressure from both his moral conscience and external events. Del Toro portrays these parallel arcs with a careful balance of psychological depth and narrative pacing, ensuring that the audience experiences the emotional and ethical stakes from multiple perspectives. The film underscores the interconnectedness of actions and consequences, showing how Victor's ambition reverberates outward, impacting not only himself and the creature but also his family and broader society. Visually, the film employs Gothic motifs and symbolic imagery to enhance the narrative. The laboratory, with its elaborate apparatus, flickering light, and shadows, is depicted as a reflection of Victor's inner turmoil, embodying both his intellectual brilliance and moral disarray. Landscapes, including snowy wilderness, desolate forests, and rugged mountains, serve as external representations of the isolation and emotional desolation experienced by both Victor and the creature. Costumes, textures, and color palettes are deliberately chosen to mirror psychological states, reinforcing narrative themes without overt exposition. Music and sound design further reinforce emotional and thematic elements. Sweeping orchestral passages accompany moments of awe and revelation, while dissonant tones and subdued melodies underscore tension, fear, and moral ambiguity. The score works in tandem with cinematography to create a fully immersive experience, guiding the audience through the complex emotional and ethical landscape of the story. The narrative's climax brings Victor and the creature into a final confrontation that is both dramatic and morally nuanced. Unlike many earlier adaptations, Del Toro emphasizes dialogue, emotional expression, and philosophical reflection, allowing both characters to confront the consequences of their actions. The creature articulates its grief, anger, and desire for understanding, while Victor expresses remorse, recognition of moral failings, and a longing for redemption. The resolution allows the audience to witness the culmination of years of tension, grief, and ethical inquiry, providing a conclusion that is both emotionally satisfying and intellectually stimulating. Supporting characters, including Elizabeth and secondary figures such as professors, villagers, and Victor's extended family, continue to enrich the narrative. Their interactions with the main characters provide additional moral, ethical, and emotional context, demonstrating the broader societal implications of Victor's experiments and the creature's existence. Each character's actions and reactions contribute to the moral complexity of the story, reinforcing the interplay between individual responsibility and societal judgment. In the final scenes, the creature's fate is portrayed with both solemnity and ambiguity. It demonstrates moral autonomy, reflecting on its experiences, the consequences of human prejudice, and the potential for compassion and understanding. The audience is invited to consider the ethical questions posed throughout the narrative, including the nature of justice, forgiveness, and the responsibilities of creators toward their creations. Del Toro's conclusion emphasizes the continuing relevance of these themes, bridging the gap between 19th-century literary concerns and contemporary ethical discourse. The film's production design, cinematography, and musical composition work in concert to create an immersive, emotionally resonant experience. Every choice, from set construction to lighting, costume design to score, reinforces the story's exploration of ambition, morality, and the human condition. The meticulous attention to detail ensures that viewers are engaged not only by the plot but by the underlying philosophical and ethical questions that define the narrative. Del Toro's Frankenstein distinguishes itself from previous cinematic adaptations by prioritizing psychological and ethical depth over spectacle alone. While earlier versions often emphasized horror and external threat, this adaptation centers the emotional and moral dimensions of the story, offering audiences a nuanced exploration of the consequences of human ambition and the ethical responsibilities of creators. The creature is portrayed as a fully realized individual, Victor as a morally complex protagonist, and the narrative as an intricate study of the interplay between knowledge, power, and responsibility. Frankenstein, 2025, directed and written by Guillermo del Toro, emerges as one of the most ambitious cinematic adaptations of Mary Shelley's iconic novel, blending gothic horror, emotional depth, and philosophical inquiry into the nature of creation, morality, and humanity. Del Toro, known for his fascination with monsters as mirrors of human emotion, spent over a decade nurturing this project, painstakingly developing a version of Frankenstein that remained faithful to Shelley's exploration of responsibility and isolation while providing audiences with a visually lush and narratively sophisticated cinematic experience. From the outset, the film establishes a world both haunting and immersive, a Europe caught between the fading grandeur of the Romantic Age and the cold, scientific rationalism that Victor Frankenstein embodies. Every detail, from the snow-laden towers to the flickering lamps in the streets of Geneva, communicates a world on the cusp of transformation, a world where human ambition meets the inexorable consequences of tampering with life itself. The opening sequences situate the audience in a world rich with atmospheric detail, where each shadow and whisper of wind underscores the underlying tension between human aspiration and moral limitation. The cinematography captures not just the external beauty of the Gothic landscape but the internal landscape of grief, obsession, and ambition, establishing a tone of foreboding elegance that persists throughout the film. Victor Frankenstein, portrayed with brooding intensity by Oscar Isaac, is introduced as a man whose early life was marked by loss, rivalry, and an insatiable curiosity for the natural world. Born into a family of privilege yet shadowed by the death of his mother during childbirth, Victor's formative years are a crucible for both brilliance and hubris. His younger brother William becomes both a source of affection and envy, as parental favor and societal expectations place him in Victor's shadow. It is in this crucible that Victor's obsession with conquering death begins to take root. While other children play and explore, Victor immerses himself in anatomy, chemistry, and electricity, spurred by grief and a desire to understand the forces that govern life and mortality. The film depicts these early years with meticulous attention to emotional nuance, the silent stares between Victor and his father, the quiet moments of grief that shape his moral compass, and the solitary wanderings in forests and graveyards where he contemplates mortality and the limits of human knowledge. The environments themselves, from candlelit corridors to the stark, icy outdoors, reflect Victor's internal tension between wonder and dread, ambition and fear. The director's attention to detail emphasizes that Victor's scientific curiosity is inseparable from his emotional vulnerability, painting a portrait of a man whose brilliance is both gift and curse. Victor's academic journey intensifies this obsession. At the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh, his brilliance is undeniable, yet his methods are unorthodox and controversial. The film emphasizes the tension between institutional authority and personal ambition, portraying Victor as a figure willing to challenge convention in pursuit of his vision. He conducts experiments that blur the line between life and death, dissecting cadavers and attempting to manipulate the spark of vitality. When the tribunal convenes to judge his practices, Victor is expelled, a moment that crystallizes his alienation from society and reinforces the narrative that genius unchecked by ethical constraint can be both brilliant and dangerous. This episode also serves as a thematic precursor to the later consequences of his work, suggesting that rejection and misunderstanding by society will become recurring motifs in his life and the life of his creation. Del Toro's camera lingers on Victor's expressions of defiance, pride, and fear, capturing the tension between societal judgment and personal conviction. The tribunal scenes are not merely procedural, they are emotional crucibles, reflecting the moral and ethical dilemmas inherent in the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. Isolated and driven, Victor finds a patron in Henrik Harlanda, an enigmatic arms merchant who provides him with unlimited resources and a secluded tower laboratory. This environment, stark yet grand, allows Victor's ambitions to flourish without interference. The film takes care to show not only the scientific procedures that lead to the creation of the creature but also the psychological and emotional journey that Victor undertakes. Every bolt of lightning, every surgical incision, and every moment of waiting for the spark of life is imbued with tension and foreboding. When the creature finally awakens, the film diverges from earlier adaptations by portraying him not as a grotesque figure of pure horror but as a being of remarkable awareness and sensitivity. Jacob Elordi's performance combines physicality and expression to convey a creature who is simultaneously innocent, intelligent, and filled with a profound yearning for connection. This reimagining emphasizes the philosophical and emotional stakes of the story. The creature is not simply a monster to be feared but a sentient being whose suffering is magnified by the neglect of his creator. Del Toro uses subtle visual cues, the creature's hesitant movements, tentative gestures, and the searching gaze, to convey a consciousness grappling with the enormity of existence and the confusion of sudden life. Victor's immediate reaction to his creation is one of horror and repulsion. Del Toro intensifies this emotional conflict by showing Victor's simultaneous pride in his scientific achievement and terror at its tangible manifestation. The creature's physicality, detailed through elaborate prosthetics and cinematic effects, becomes a mirror reflecting Victor's own moral failings, his hubris, and his inability to assume responsibility. Abandonment sets the stage for the creature's journey into a world that is at once beautiful and cruel. Left to navigate human society alone, he encounters prejudice, fear, and violence, experiences that shape his understanding of morality, empathy, and vengeance. These encounters are rendered with care, showing the creature's growing intelligence, emotional depth, and capacity for both love and rage. He learns language, reads human texts, and observes the complexity of human interaction, gaining insights that both empower him and deepen his existential anguish. Each of these experiences is framed to highlight the disparity between the creature's innate morality and the society that misunderstands him, creating a commentary on human prejudice and the consequences of social neglect. Meanwhile, Victor Frankenstein becomes increasingly consumed by paranoia and guilt. He sees the consequences of his actions everywhere: sudden deaths, mysterious accidents, and the growing tension within his family. His father, Leopold Frankenstein, is both supportive and wary, representing the societal and familial pressures Victor attempts to evade through obsession with his scientific pursuits. The juxtaposition between Victor's intellectual ambition and his failure to manage his personal and ethical responsibilities illustrates the film's central moral dilemma: the pursuit of knowledge at the expense of humanity. Victor's isolation in the tower laboratory mirrors the creature's own social alienation, creating a parallel between creator and creation that Del Toro develops with psychological precision. Both characters are trapped, one by the burdens of conscience, the other by the consequences of rejection, and this symmetry drives the narrative forward toward inevitable tragedy. Del Toro emphasizes this mirroring through cinematography, using framing, lighting, and spatial design to show the internal and external isolation shared by Victor and his creation. The creature, increasingly aware of his own power and limitations, begins a series of confrontations with Victor, seeking answers, recognition, and justice. Each encounter is charged with moral and emotional tension, exploring themes of accountability, identity, and the nature of existence. Del Toro's direction ensures that these confrontations are as much psychological as they are physical. The creature's dialogue reflects a sophisticated understanding of language and philosophy, as he challenges Victor to consider the implications of creating life without assuming responsibility for it. These scenes are among the most poignant of the film, with Jacob Elordi conveying a mixture of anger, sorrow, and longing, portraying a being whose intellect and emotional depth surpass societal expectations of morality and empathy. The film allows audiences to inhabit the creature's perspective, experiencing both his pain and his curiosity, highlighting how a being with moral awareness can still be driven by loneliness and despair. Victor's personal life continues to deteriorate under the weight of his creation's influence. Elizabeth, despite her compassion, grows increasingly concerned about Victor's obsession, attempting to anchor him to a sense of morality and human connection that he increasingly neglects. Tragedy strikes when William, Victor's younger brother, is killed under circumstances indirectly linked to the creature's actions. This death serves as a catalyst for Victor, compelling him to confront the tangible consequences of his ambition. The creature, though intelligent and reflective, is also driven by profound loneliness and anger, making his pursuit of Victor as much about seeking acknowledgement as enacting vengeance. The narrative emphasizes that the moral failing lies not merely in the creature's actions but in Victor's initial abandonment and failure to guide his creation. Del Toro stages these tragic events with visual and emotional intensity, underscoring the ripple effects of neglect and hubris. The film's tension escalates as the creature forces Victor into a series of morally complex dilemmas. In one pivotal sequence, the creature demands that Victor create a companion for him, reasoning that mutual understanding and companionship could prevent further tragedy. Victor initially resists, aware that a second creation could compound the consequences of his hubris. Del Toro explores Victor's inner turmoil with cinematic detail, the flickering candlelight, the shadows across Victor's face, and the storm-laden skies outside the laboratory mirror the tempest of moral and emotional conflict within. Victor ultimately begins the process of creating a second being, only to destroy it before it is completed, fearing that humanity could be irreversibly endangered. This act of destruction intensifies the creature's anguish and sets in motion a chain of irreversible consequences, illustrating the tragic interplay between creation, responsibility, and moral fear. As the narrative moves toward its climax, Victor and the creature's confrontations become increasingly intense, both physically and emotionally. Their final pursuit takes them to the Arctic, where Victor, wounded and exhausted, faces the ultimate consequences of his ambition. The creature, fully aware of his own moral complexity, exhibits moments of mercy, anger, and sorrow, highlighting the duality of his nature. The Arctic setting, desolate, unforgiving, and visually striking, amplifies the thematic resonance of isolation, mortality, and the destructive potential of human hubris. Del Toro employs visual symbolism throughout. Ice and snow reflect both purity and danger, the relentless cold mirrors emotional and moral detachment, and the vast emptiness underscores the existential isolation that both creator and creation experience. Every shot is composed to emphasize the scale of nature compared to human ambition, reinforcing the story's meditation on mortality and consequence. After the climactic confrontation, Victor Frankenstein's fate is sealed by his own ambition and moral failings. We see him succumbing to exhaustion, frostbite, and the weight of guilt, the final acknowledgement that human ingenuity, however brilliant, cannot escape the consequences of neglect and hubris. His final moments are contemplative and tragic rather than sensationalized. Del Toro chooses to emphasize Victor's inner reckoning and the emotional toll of his journey. The creature, standing amid the frozen desolation, experiences both triumph and sorrow. While he has asserted his agency and forced Victor to confront his failings, he is left alone, facing a world that will forever fear and misunderstand him. Del Toro portrays the creature with profound empathy. His final expressions convey a complex mixture of grief, longing, and cautious hope. He is a being caught between the human and the monstrous, capable of love, rage, intelligence, and reflection, yet condemned by circumstance to a life of isolation. Throughout the film, Del Toro interweaves motifs and symbolic imagery to reinforce these themes. Light and shadow are used not only to create Gothic atmosphere but also to underscore moral ambiguity and the duality of creator and creation. Storms, lightning, and snowstorms parallel emotional and ethical turmoil, while enclosed spaces like the laboratory tower and family estates accentuate confinement, both physical and psychological. Nature itself becomes a character, reflecting and responding to the human drama that unfolds within it. Music and sound design further amplify the narrative, with Alexander Desplat's score echoing both the creature's longing and Victor's torment, creating an auditory landscape that complements the visual and emotional storytelling. The production design, costumes, and lighting are meticulously crafted, enhancing the immersive quality of the film and providing subtle cues about character development and thematic intent. Thematically, the film expands upon Shelley's original exploration of creation, responsibility, and the nature of humanity. Del Toro emphasizes the moral and emotional obligations of a creator to their creation, illustrating how neglect can lead to profound suffering. The creature's journey is a mirror to Victor's own failings, demonstrating how intelligence and moral awareness do not immunize one from pain or isolation. By giving the creature a rich interior life and emotional depth, the film invites audiences to reconsider traditional notions of monstrosity, exploring the blurred lines between human and inhuman, morality and immorality. Themes of grief, loss, and the consequences of ambition permeate the narrative, making the story relevant to contemporary audiences while remaining faithful to the philosophical concerns of Shelley's text. The film's release strategy reflects its status as a high-profile cinematic event. Premiering at the Venice International Film Festival on August 30, 2025, Frankenstein immediately garnered critical attention, with audiences praising its visual storytelling, emotional resonance, and philosophical depth. The limited theatrical release on October 17, 2025, allowed viewers to experience the grandeur of Del Toro's cinematic vision in IMAX and traditional theaters, while the Netflix global streaming release on November 7, 2025, ensured wide accessibility. The film achieved both critical acclaim and popular success, sparking discussions about ethical responsibility, human nature, and the evolving depiction of monsters in cinema. Critics lauded Del Toro's visual and narrative choices, particularly his decision to humanize the creature and focus on the moral complexity of the story. Some viewers noted the film's slower pacing compared to conventional horror or action-oriented adaptations, but these deliberate rhythms were praised for allowing character development, thematic exploration, and emotional engagement. The creature's intelligence, reflective capacity, and moral awareness were frequently highlighted as transformative, setting this adaptation apart from previous cinematic versions. Reviews emphasize that the film is less about shocking audiences with gore and more about exploring ethical dilemmas, human emotion, and existential questioning. Awards recognition followed, including nominations and wins for production design, costume design, makeup and prosthetics, and acting accolades, particularly for Jacob Elordi, whose nuanced portrayal of the creature captured the imagination of critics and audiences alike. Behind the scenes, the production of Frankenstein reflects Del Toro's meticulous approach to filmmaking. Years of development, concept art, and collaborative design went into creating the creature, the laboratory, and the Gothic landscapes that populate the film. Extensive prosthetics, practical effects, and set construction were combined with subtle digital enhancements, ensuring a tactile and immersive world. Del Toro collaborated closely with his cast and crew to ensure that emotional authenticity and visual spectacle worked hand in hand, with rehearsals, movement studies, and psychological preparation for the actors forming a central part of the production process. The cinematography captures both grandeur and intimacy, emphasizing the scale of the Arctic sequences, the claustrophobia of laboratory interiors, and the quiet poignancy of personal interactions. Costume and set design were informed by historical research, Gothic architecture, and symbolic motifs, resulting in a film that is rich in detail and immersive in atmosphere. The cultural impact of Frankenstein has been notable, reigniting discussion around the ethical implications of creation, the treatment of outsiders, and the enduring resonance of Shelley's novel in the modern era. The film's portrayal of the creature as a reflective, morally complex being has encouraged audiences to reconsider ideas of monstrosity, humaneness, and empathy. Academic and popular discourse alike has examined the film's approach to narrative fidelity, visual storytelling, and philosophical engagement, often citing Del Toro's adaptation as a benchmark for contemporary Gothic cinema. Audience engagement, both online and in critical forums, reflects fascination with the moral and emotional questions raised, from the nature of responsibility to the search for belonging and understanding in a world predisposed to fear difference. In essence, Del Toro's Frankenstein is more than a retelling of a classic novel. It is an immersive exploration of the consequences of human ambition, the ethical responsibilities of creation, and the complex interplay between isolation, morality, and emotional depth. By giving equal weight to the perspectives of both creator and creation, the film crafts a narrative that is at once tragic, contemplative, and visually stunning. Through careful world-building, nuanced performances, and philosophical engagement, the story captures the enduring relevance of Mary Shelley's themes while offering new insight into the psychological, moral, and emotional dimensions of her work. The Arctic landscapes, the Gothic interiors, the storm-ravaged laboratories, and the intimate character moments coalesce into a cinematic experience that challenges viewers to reflect on humanity, morality, and the nature of life itself, leaving a lasting impression long after the credits roll. The film stands as both a tribute to Shelley's timeless novel and a distinctive achievement in modern cinema, balancing horror, beauty, tragedy, and philosophical depth in a way that resonates across generations. The final sequences of Frankenstein, 2025, are critical in synthesizing the narrative, thematic, and emotional arcs of the film. One of the most striking aspects is the depiction of the creature's moral and intellectual evolution. Earlier in the story, the creature's encounters with humans, though met with fear and aggression, reveal its intrinsic curiosity, empathy, and desire for connection. By the climactic sequences, the creature has developed an acute awareness of its creator's failings and the ethical consequences of Victor's ambition. These scenes emphasize the interplay between power and responsibility. Victor wields the power of life and death, but the moral implications of his actions reverberate far beyond his laboratory. The creature becomes both a mirror and a moral judge, illustrating that creation without care or foresight is inherently tragic. The emotional resonance of these moments is amplified by Elordi's nuanced performance, which conveys a spectrum of feelings, anger, sorrow, longing, and philosophical contemplation, without relying on dialogue alone. Victor's confrontation with the outcomes of his ambition serves as a narrative and moral climax. Unlike adaptations where Victor is portrayed solely as a doomed, arrogant scientist, this film presents him as a fully rounded character, capable of introspection, guilt, and ethical reasoning. The Arctic setting of the final sequences underscores the magnitude of the consequences. The vast, unforgiving environment reflects both the isolation and the enormity of human ambition. Cinematic techniques such as sweeping wide shots, chiaroscuro lighting, and soundscapes of wind and cracking ice heighten the sense of existential reflection, reinforcing the idea that human actions are small yet significant within the larger fabric of nature and morality. Del Toro's decision to explore the psychological dimension of both Victor and the creature allows for a profound meditation on the human condition. Victor's obsessive pursuit of knowledge parallels the creature's quest for identity and recognition, creating a narrative symmetry that reinforces the film's thematic core. Both characters are, in different ways, outsiders. Victor alienates himself from family, society, and moral norms in his pursuit of creation, while the creature is literally and socially excluded. These parallel arcs encourage audiences to consider the consequences of isolation, both voluntary and imposed, and the ethical responsibility we bear toward those we create, mentor, or marginalize. The film also delves deeply into social themes, particularly the consequences of prejudice, fear, and rejection. The creature's repeated encounters with violence, suspicion, and dismissal highlight the human tendency to judge based on appearance or difference. These social dynamics are not portrayed simply as plot devices but are central to the moral framework of the story. The film suggests that neglect, prejudice, and social exclusion produce suffering, ethical dilemmas, and cycles of conflict that extend beyond any individual character. By integrating these themes into both narrative and visual storytelling, Del Toro provides audiences with a lens through which to examine contemporary issues of discrimination, social responsibility, and empathy. Detailed scene analysis reveals the careful construction of emotional and philosophical depth. For example, the scenes in which the creature explores human artifacts, literature, and art serve as both character development and thematic commentary. These sequences emphasize the creature's innate intelligence and sensitivity, contrasting with the fear and violence it encounters from humans. The juxtaposition of knowledge and rejection illustrates the ethical questions raised by Shelley's novel and extended by Del Toro's interpretation. What responsibilities accompany the creation of life? How does society respond to difference? How does one navigate the tension between innate human curiosity and societal constraints? The film's cinematography and production design are integral to conveying these themes. Gothic interiors, labyrinthine laboratories, and desolate landscapes are not merely backdrops but reflections of the character's psychological and moral states. The decaying structures in Victor's family home, the shadowed corridors of the laboratory, and the icy expanses of the Arctic all serve as visual metaphors for ambition, isolation, and ethical consequence. The meticulous attention to visual detail ensures that every frame carries narrative weight, whether through lighting, composition, or symbolic placement of props and actors. The creature's design represents a synthesis of grotesque and human elements, reflecting its dual nature as both artificial construct and sentient being. Prosthetics, facial expressions, and nuanced body language convey a full range of emotions, allowing audiences to empathize with the creature even as it navigates violent and tragic circumstances. Del Toro's choice to highlight subtle human qualities within the creature challenges conventional notions of monstrosity, reinforcing the film's exploration of moral and ethical responsibility, empathy, and the consequences of human neglect. The narrative also engages with philosophical and existential questions, exploring the meaning of life, the ethics of creation, and the tension between knowledge and morality. Victor's ambition, though intellectually admirable, ultimately results in suffering for himself, the creature, and those around him, illustrating the dangers of unchecked pursuit of knowledge. The creature's journey emphasizes the moral and social dimensions of existence, highlighting the need for empathy, understanding, and recognition. These philosophical threads run throughout the film, transforming it from a horror story into a meditation on human existence, ethics, and the responsibilities that accompany power and creativity. The conclusion of the film reinforces these themes while providing emotional closure. Victor's realization of the consequences of his actions and the creature's ultimate path toward self-awareness and reflection highlight the intertwined destinies of creator and creation. The Arctic setting underscores the starkness of isolation and the magnitude of moral and existential reckoning. The ending avoids simple resolution; instead, it leaves audiences contemplating the ethical questions and emotional truths raised by the narrative, emphasizing that creation, responsibility, and empathy are ongoing processes rather than singular events. From a cultural perspective, Frankenstein, 2025, demonstrates the enduring relevance of Shelley's novel. The film engages with contemporary audiences by addressing universal themes such as the ethical use of knowledge, the consequences of ambition, social exclusion, and the search for identity and recognition. Its nuanced portrayal of both Victor and the creature encourages reflection on moral responsibility, the ethics of creation, and the consequences of neglecting social and ethical obligations. By bridging the 19th-century context of Shelley's work with modern concerns, the film reaffirms the timeless nature of the Frankenstein story and its applicability to contemporary philosophical and social discourse. The artistic legacy of the 2025 adaptation is significant. Del Toro's vision combines visual sophistication, emotional depth, narrative complexity, and philosophical inquiry in a way that elevates the story beyond conventional horror. Cinematic techniques, including lighting, framing, sound design, and musical score, function in harmony with the narrative to create an immersive experience that engages both intellect and emotion. By reimagining the creature as an empathetic, intelligent, and morally complex being, the film challenges traditional notions of monstrosity and invites audiences to consider the ethical dimensions of human creativity and responsibility. In summary, Frankenstein, 2025, is a masterful adaptation that blends the intellectual and emotional richness of Mary Shelley's novel with Guillermo del Toro's unique artistic vision. The film explores themes of ambition, creation, responsibility, empathy, and social exclusion, using visual storytelling, nuanced performances, and philosophical inquiry to create a compelling cinematic experience. Victor Frankenstein and the creature are portrayed as fully realized characters whose intertwined destinies illuminate ethical, emotional, and existential dilemmas. Through its careful construction, innovative interpretation, and attention to emotional and moral complexity, the film stands as both a faithful homage to Shelley's work and a fresh, relevant exploration of timeless human concerns. Its combination of narrative depth, visual artistry, and philosophical resonance ensures that Frankenstein, 2025, will be remembered not only as a landmark literary adaptation but also as a profound meditation on the human condition, the responsibilities of creation, and the enduring search for understanding and empathy. Beyond the main acts and climactic confrontations, Frankenstein, 2025, excels in its exploration of thematic depth, weaving complex philosophical and moral questions throughout even minor scenes. One recurring theme is the duality of creation. The relationship between creator and creation mirrors the broader tension between humanity and the natural world, knowledge and morality, ambition and responsibility. Guillermo del Toro carefully structures scenes to emphasize this duality. For instance, in sequences where Victor examines the creature's evolving consciousness, the camera often frames them side by side, yet in contrasting light, Victor shrouded in shadow, consumed by obsession, the creature illuminated subtly, reflecting curiosity, learning, and nascent morality. These visual contrasts reinforce the narrative's central ethical questions: who truly holds power, and who bears responsibility for actions born of creation. Minor but pivotal moments punctuate the narrative, enriching the film's emotional and intellectual texture. In one scene, the creature discovers a small village, attempting to observe human behavior from the safety of the forest. He watches a family preparing a meal, laughing together, and briefly imitates their gestures, hoping for recognition or connection. Guillermo del Toro extends these interactions beyond Shelley's text, emphasizing the creature's yearning for acceptance. The cinematography here employs long, lingering shots, capturing both the creature's awe and isolation. The subtle soundscape, rustling leaves, distant laughter, and soft instrumental motifs, creates a layered sensory experience that draws viewers into the creature's consciousness. These moments, though brief, are crucial in establishing empathy and illustrating the tragic irony of his existence, a being capable of intelligence, emotion, and moral reflection, yet rejected solely for appearance. Another minor yet significant scene occurs when Victor attempts to destroy his notes and experimental equipment after realizing the consequences of his actions. The act is both physical and symbolic, tearing pages, breaking apparatus, and scattering instruments across the laboratory signify the futility of attempting to undo creation. Guillermo del Toro uses high-contrast lighting to emphasize the tension between the warm glow of potential human relationships, symbolized by Elizabeth's distant presence in the narrative, and the cold, sterile light of scientific obsession. The sound design accentuates the destructive gestures, tearing paper, clattering metal, and reverberating echoes within the laboratory space, blending both realism and dramatic intensity. These small sequences amplify the broader themes of responsibility, hubris, and the irreversible consequences of human ambition. Music and sound design are central throughout the film, functioning as both narrative and emotional devices. Alexander Desplat's score varies according to character perspective and narrative tension. For the creature, melodic strings, subtle woodwinds, and ambient tones emphasize curiosity, intelligence, and longing. In contrast, Victor's sequences feature dissonant chords, minor harmonics, and pulsating rhythms to evoke anxiety, obsession, and moral decay. Environmental sounds, wind through the mountains, rain hitting stone, or distant thunder, are integrated into the score to reinforce thematic resonance, blurring the lines between diegetic and non-diegetic audio. Guillermo del Toro uses sound to manipulate emotional pacing, creating suspense and empathy simultaneously, ensuring that even silent moments resonate profoundly with viewers. The film's visual motifs are equally deliberate. Mirrors and reflections frequently appear, emphasizing duality, self-awareness, and moral introspection. Shadows are employed to signify both physical and ethical darkness, often enveloping Victor while leaving the creature partially illuminated, suggesting the reversal of moral and psychological power. Nature functions as an extension of thematic content. Forests, mountains, and rivers mirror the creature's inner state, fluctuating between serenity and chaos. Weather patterns, storms, rain, snow, underscore narrative tension, serving as symbolic extensions of emotional states and ethical conflicts. Del Toro's attention to visual language ensures that every frame communicates multiple layers of meaning, enriching both narrative and philosophical engagement. Comparisons with other Frankenstein adaptations highlight the uniqueness of Del Toro's approach. Classic adaptations, such as James Whale's 1931 Frankenstein, often emphasize physical horror and spectacle over psychological depth. The creature is portrayed largely as a menacing presence, and Victor's internal ethical struggles are secondary. By contrast, Del Toro prioritizes emotional resonance, intellectual depth, and moral complexity. Unlike Kenneth Branagh's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, 1994, which blends Gothic spectacle with dramatic performance, Del Toro's film integrates psychological realism, character development, and sensory immersion with an almost operatic visual and auditory aesthetic. Even modern adaptations such as Victor Frankenstein, 2015, focus heavily on spectacle and narrative pacing, whereas Del Toro balances spectacle with philosophical reflection, creating a cohesive exploration of creation, alienation, and responsibility. This positions Frankenstein, 2025, as a uniquely contemplative and immersive reinterpretation of Shelley's work for contemporary audiences. The reception of Frankenstein reflects both critical acclaim and audience engagement. Critics universally praised the performances of Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi, particularly Elordi's ability to convey the creature's intellectual and emotional complexity. Reviewers noted that the film successfully blends Gothic horror with moral inquiry, elevating the story beyond conventional horror tropes. The film's cinematography, visual design, and soundscape were repeatedly highlighted as exemplary, contributing to its immersive quality and reinforcing the thematic depth of creation, responsibility, and societal judgment. Audience responses mirrored critical sentiment, with many noting the empathetic portrayal of the creature and the moral and emotional resonance of Victor's downfall. The film also received recognition in festival circuits, including nominations for cinematography, costume design, makeup, and supporting acting categories, with Jacob Elordi winning the 2026 Critics' Choice Award for Best Supporting Actor. In terms of cultural impact, Frankenstein, 2025, sparked discussions about the ethics of scientific advancement and societal treatment of the other. Scholars and critics analyzed how Del Toro's reinterpretation amplifies Shelley's moral questions for a contemporary context, emphasizing themes of alienation, identity, and moral responsibility in the face of technological progress. The creature's nuanced portrayal inspired reflection on social prejudices, empathy, and the ethical treatment of sentient beings. Film studies programs and literary courses have integrated the adaptation to explore narrative interpretation, character development, and cinematic translation of classic texts, demonstrating its significance as both an artistic and educational work. The narrative, visual, and thematic richness of Frankenstein also allowed for detailed merchandising, academic analysis, and discussion in media. Art books released alongside the film provide insight into Del Toro's design choices for sets, creature makeup, and costumes. Interviews with the director and cast revealed extensive preparation, including research into anatomy, Gothic architecture, and 19th-century scientific discourse. Jacob Elordi underwent months of physical training and prosthetic adaptation to fully embody the creature, while Oscar Isaac collaborated with Del Toro on exploring Victor's moral descent, psychological obsession, and moments of remorse. Behind-the-scenes footage highlights the meticulous effort required to balance emotional authenticity, visual spectacle, and narrative depth, reinforcing the film's position as a landmark adaptation. Even in minor sequences, Del Toro ensures that ethical, emotional, and philosophical questions remain at the forefront. For example, brief glimpses of townspeople reacting to the creature's presence emphasize societal fear, rejection, and prejudice, providing context for the creature's psychological transformation. Similarly, Victor's solitary moments, writing in journals, tending to experiments, or reflecting in dimly lit corridors, illustrate the isolation that accompanies obsessive ambition. These interspersed vignettes enrich the narrative tapestry, ensuring that even transitional scenes contribute to the overall moral and thematic exploration. Sound, lighting, and camera movement are synchronized to reinforce psychological tension and ethical reflection, creating a unified cinematic experience. As the creature continues its journey of self-discovery, it begins to reflect not only on its own existence but on the broader implications of life, morality, and the human condition. Through observing human interactions, literature, and societal structures, the creature develops a moral and ethical framework, learning to distinguish between kindness and cruelty, justice and injustice, love and indifference. Its intellectual growth is portrayed with meticulous care, showing the audience how isolation and trauma can shape an individual's perception of the world. The creature begins to question not only Victor's decisions but the very nature of society's prejudices, recognizing that its suffering is as much a product of human fear and misunderstanding as it is of Victor's ambition. These sequences elevate the narrative from a tale of horror to a meditation on the moral obligations humans have towards sentient beings, especially those they create or affect. Victor's arc mirrors this trajectory in a contrasting way. While the creature develops moral consciousness, Victor becomes increasingly consumed by obsession, guilt, and fear. His pursuit of scientific achievement blinds him to ethical consequences until they become unavoidable, demonstrating a stark contrast between intellect untempered by empathy and understanding born from suffering. Del Toro portrays Victor's descent as gradual yet inexorable, highlighting both his brilliance and his moral fragility. Each choice Victor makes reinforces the film's central theme: unchecked ambition and the refusal to acknowledge responsibility can have catastrophic consequences not only for oneself but for everyone around them. The relationship between Victor and the creature intensifies with each encounter, oscillating between confrontation, reflection, and brief moments of understanding. Early confrontations are characterized by fear and violence, with Victor perceiving the creature as a threat and the creature interpreting Victor's rejection as betrayal. These interactions are carefully choreographed to reflect not only physical tension but also psychological complexity. Del Toro uses framing, lighting, and pacing to emphasize the emotional stakes of each encounter, ensuring that the audience feels the profound grief, anger, and longing that define the dynamic between creator and creation. These sequences are interspersed with reflective interludes, in which both characters confront the ethical and emotional dimensions of their actions, allowing the audience to engage with the narrative on both an intellectual and emotional level. Secondary characters continue to shape the story's emotional and moral landscape. Elizabeth, for instance, serves as a voice of conscience, moral reasoning, and emotional grounding for Victor. Her attempts to reconcile Victor's obsession with his familial and social responsibilities highlight the human costs of ambition, and her eventual fate underscores the narrative's tragic stakes. William's role, while shorter in duration, is pivotal in illustrating the consequences of neglect and the collateral damage of unchecked ambition. Other secondary characters, including professors, townspeople, and minor family members, serve as reflections of societal attitudes toward the unknown, fear of difference, and the limitations of human empathy. Del Toro's careful development of these characters ensures that the world of Frankenstein feels rich, fully realized, and morally complex. The creature's ethical reasoning reaches a peak when it confronts Victor with a series of demands. Unlike earlier adaptations that emphasized mindless revenge or brute strength, Del Toro's creature articulates its desires with clarity, reasoning, and moral argumentation. It seeks recognition, understanding, and companionship, framing its demands in terms of fairness, justice, and emotional need rather than mere retaliation. This approach transforms the narrative into a philosophical dialogue between creator and creation, inviting the audience to consider fundamental questions about responsibility, the ethics of creation, and the consequences of abandonment. Victor's responses, vacillating between fear, rationalization, and moral introspection, reinforce the story's complexity and highlight the interplay between knowledge, power, and ethical obligation. The request for a companion represents a climactic ethical dilemma within the narrative. Victor must choose between fulfilling the creature's request and confronting the moral and practical consequences of creating another sentient being. The film portrays Victor's internal struggle with intensity, depicting his fear of societal condemnation, potential misuse of power, and the moral burden of further experimentation. This sequence reflects a central theme of Shelley's original text, the tension between human curiosity and ethical responsibility. Del Toro heightens this tension by allowing the audience intimate access to Victor's thoughts, emotions, and ethical reasoning, making the decision a deeply personal as well as philosophical moment. As Victor grapples with his moral dilemma, the narrative explores the consequences of inaction and delayed responsibility. The creature, perceiving Victor's hesitation as continued rejection, experiences emotional turmoil that propels the story toward tragedy. Del Toro portrays this escalation with meticulous pacing, ensuring that the audience understands the causal relationship between Victor's decisions, the creature's suffering, and the broader consequences for society and family. Each plot development reinforces the themes of moral accountability, empathy, and the dangers of ignoring ethical obligations. The narrative continues with a series of confrontations that are as much psychological and emotional as they are physical. The creature's growing strength, intelligence, and moral reasoning make it a formidable presence, while Victor's ingenuity and knowledge drive him to pursue and ultimately confront the consequences of his own creations. These sequences are visually and emotionally rich, blending Gothic aesthetics, dramatic tension, and philosophical reflection. Del Toro's direction emphasizes that the true horror lies not in the creature's form but in the moral and ethical failings of humanity, with Victor embodying the perilous consequences of ambition unchecked by conscience. The climax of the film centers on the final confrontation between Victor and the creature, which is both tragic and morally resonant. In a sequence that spans desolate landscapes, crumbling structures, and storm-laden skies, the audience witnesses the culmination of years of obsession, grief, and ethical conflict. Victor's recognition of his failures and the creature's assertion of moral agency create a tension that is both dramatic and reflective. Unlike earlier adaptations that concluded with revenge or unmitigated horror, Del Toro's narrative allows for reconciliation, moral reflection, and the possibility of understanding, providing a conclusion that is both emotionally satisfying and intellectually engaging. The creature's final actions emphasize autonomy, moral reasoning, and philosophical reflection. It chooses a path that acknowledges the consequences of both its own and Victor's actions, reflecting on the nature of justice, compassion, and forgiveness. The narrative leaves certain aspects of the creature's fate deliberately ambiguous, encouraging the audience to engage with ethical and philosophical questions beyond the scope of the film. This approach reinforces the story's thematic richness and underscores Del Toro's commitment to creating a narrative that is both faithful to Shelley's text and innovatively cinematic. The film's visual storytelling plays a critical role in conveying these narrative and ethical dimensions. Gothic architecture, desolate landscapes, chiaroscuro lighting, and symbolic imagery all serve to reinforce the psychological states of the characters and the ethical weight of the narrative. Del Toro employs visual metaphors to explore themes of creation, isolation, and moral consequence, ensuring that every frame contributes to the narrative's intellectual and emotional impact. The cinematography complements the narrative by creating a sense of immersion, guiding the audience through the ethical, emotional, and philosophical terrain of the story. Production design, costume work, and practical effects further enhance the film's immersive qualities. The laboratory, the creature's hideaway, and other key locations are crafted to reflect the moral and psychological dimensions of the narrative. Costumes incorporate symbolic elements, with textures, colors, and details reinforcing the inner states of the characters. Practical effects are used judiciously to create a tangible sense of physicality and realism, ensuring that the Gothic horror elements support rather than overshadow the story's ethical and emotional complexity. Comparisons with previous adaptations of Frankenstein highlight the unique qualities of Del Toro's approach. Whereas early films often emphasize the creature's monstrousness and external horror, this adaptation prioritizes empathy, psychological depth, and moral reflection. The creature is rendered as a fully realized individual, capable of intellectual, emotional, and ethical reasoning. Victor is portrayed as morally complex, neither purely heroic nor villainous, and the narrative explores the consequences of ambition and ethical failure with sophistication. These choices distinguish the 2025 adaptation from its cinematic predecessors, offering a version of Frankenstein that is intellectually and emotionally resonant for contemporary audiences. The film's critical reception reflects its success in balancing narrative, aesthetic, and ethical concerns. Critics have praised the emotional depth, visual artistry, and philosophical sophistication of the film, emphasizing its ability to reinterpret a classic text in a manner that is both faithful and innovative. Audiences have responded positively to the nuanced portrayal of the creature and Victor, recognizing the moral and emotional complexity of the story. The hybrid release model, including festival screenings, limited theatrical releases, and global streaming, has allowed the film to reach a wide audience while maintaining its artistic prestige. Frankenstein, 2025, directed and written by Guillermo del Toro, emerges as one of the most ambitious cinematic adaptations of Mary Shelley's iconic novel, blending Gothic horror, emotional depth, and philosophical inquiry into the nature of creation, morality, and humanity. Del Toro, known for his fascination with monsters as mirrors of human emotion, spent over a decade nurturing this project, painstakingly developing a version of Frankenstein that remained faithful to Shelley's exploration of responsibility and isolation while providing audiences with a visually lush and narratively sophisticated cinematic experience. From the outset, the film establishes a world both haunting and immersive, a Europe caught between the fading grandeur of the Romantic Age and the cold, scientific rationalism that Victor Frankenstein embodies. Every detail, from the snow-laden towers to the flickering lamps in the streets of Geneva, communicates a world on the cusp of transformation, a world where human ambition meets the inexorable consequences of tampering with life itself. The opening sequences situate the audience in a world rich with atmospheric detail, where each shadow and whisper of wind underscores the underlying tension between human aspiration and moral limitation. The cinematography captures not just the external beauty of the Gothic landscape but the internal landscape of grief, obsession, and ambition, establishing a tone of foreboding elegance that persists throughout the film. Victor Frankenstein, portrayed with brooding intensity by Oscar Isaac, is introduced as a man whose early life was marked by loss, rivalry, and an insatiable curiosity for the natural world. Born into a family of privilege yet shadowed by the death of his mother during childbirth, Victor's formative years are a crucible for both brilliance and hubris. His younger brother William becomes both a source of affection and envy, as parental favor and societal expectations place him in Victor's shadow. It is in this crucible that Victor's obsession with conquering death begins to take root. While other children play and explore, Victor immerses himself in anatomy, chemistry, and electricity, spurred by grief and a desire to understand the forces that govern life and mortality. The film depicts these early years with meticulous attention to emotional nuance, the silent stares between Victor and his father, the quiet moments of grief that shape his moral compass, and the solitary wanderings in forests and graveyards where he contemplates mortality and the limits of human knowledge. The environments themselves, from candlelit corridors to the stark, icy outdoors, reflect Victor's internal tension between wonder and dread, ambition and fear. The director's attention to detail emphasizes that Victor's scientific curiosity is inseparable from his emotional vulnerability, painting a portrait of a man whose brilliance is both gift and curse. Minor moments, such as Victor pausing over a bird's corpse to study its veins or lingering over a dying candle in his family home, subtly foreshadow the obsessive and moral dimensions of his later experiments, showing that even small curiosities are imbued with a latent danger when pursued without restraint. Victor's academic journey intensifies this obsession. At the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh, his brilliance is undeniable, yet his methods are unorthodox and controversial. The film emphasizes the tension between institutional authority and personal ambition, portraying Victor as a figure willing to challenge convention in pursuit of his vision. He conducts experiments that blur the line between life and death, dissecting cadavers and attempting to manipulate the spark of vitality. When the tribunal convenes to judge his practices, Victor is expelled, a moment that crystallizes his alienation from society and reinforces the narrative that genius unchecked by ethical constraint can be both brilliant and dangerous. This episode also serves as a thematic precursor to the later consequences of his work, suggesting that rejection and misunderstanding by society will become recurring motifs in his life and the life of his creation. Del Toro's camera lingers on Victor's expressions of defiance, pride, and fear, capturing the tension between societal judgment and personal conviction. The tribunal scenes are not merely procedural, they are emotional crucibles, reflecting the moral and ethical dilemmas inherent in the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. Minor subplots, such as Victor's interaction with fellow students who alternately admire and ridicule him, deepen the audience's understanding of the social pressures and envy that contribute to his isolation, revealing how genius can be both revered and vilified. Isolated and driven, Victor finds a patron in Henrik Harlanda, an enigmatic arms merchant who provides him with unlimited resources and a secluded tower laboratory. This environment, stark yet grand, allows Victor's ambitions to flourish without interference. The film takes care to show not only the scientific procedures that lead to the creation of the creature but also the psychological and emotional journey that Victor undertakes. Every bolt of lightning, every surgical incision, and every moment of waiting for the spark of life is imbued with tension and foreboding. When the creature finally awakens, the film diverges from earlier adaptations by portraying him not as a grotesque figure of pure horror but as a being of remarkable awareness and sensitivity. Jacob Elordi's performance combines physicality and expression to convey a creature who is simultaneously innocent, intelligent, and filled with a profound yearning for connection. This reimagining emphasizes the philosophical and emotional stakes of the story. The creature is not simply a monster to be feared but a sentient being whose suffering is magnified by the neglect of his creator. Del Toro uses subtle visual cues, the creature's hesitant movements, tentative gestures, and the searching gaze, to convey a consciousness grappling with the enormity of existence and the confusion of sudden life. The film further explores minor symbolic gestures, such as the creature hesitating to touch a mirror or reacting to the first snow, conveying curiosity, self-awareness, and the dawning of emotional complexity, deepening the audience's empathy. Victor's immediate reaction to his creation is one of horror and repulsion. Del Toro intensifies this emotional conflict by showing Victor's simultaneous pride in his scientific achievement and terror at its tangible manifestation. The creature's physicality, detailed through elaborate prosthetics and cinematic effects, becomes a mirror reflecting Victor's own moral failings, his hubris, and his inability to assume responsibility. Abandonment sets the stage for the creature's journey into a world that is at once beautiful and cruel. Left to navigate human society alone, he encounters prejudice, fear, and violence, experiences that shape his understanding of morality, empathy, and vengeance. These encounters are rendered with care, showing the creature's growing intelligence, emotional depth, and capacity for both love and rage. He learns language, reads human texts, and observes the complexity of human interaction, gaining insights that both empower him and deepen his existential anguish. Each of these experiences is framed to highlight the disparity between the creature's innate morality and the society that misunderstands him, creating a commentary on human prejudice and the consequences of social neglect. Subtle moments, such as the creature observing a family in secret and experiencing joy at small acts of kindness or despair at human cruelty, provide a textured exploration of social alienation and emotional learning, expanding the narrative's philosophical depth. Meanwhile, Victor Frankenstein becomes increasingly consumed by paranoia and guilt. He sees the consequences of his actions everywhere: sudden deaths, mysterious accidents, and the growing tension within his family. His father, Leopold Frankenstein, is both supportive and wary, representing the societal and familial pressures Victor attempts to evade through obsession with his scientific pursuits. The juxtaposition between Victor's intellectual ambition and his failure to manage his personal and ethical responsibilities illustrates the film's central moral dilemma: the pursuit of knowledge at the expense of humanity. Victor's isolation in the tower laboratory mirrors the creature's own social alienation, creating a parallel between creator and creation that Del Toro develops with psychological precision. Both characters are trapped, one by the burdens of conscience, the other by the consequences of rejection, and this symmetry drives the narrative forward toward inevitable tragedy. Del Toro emphasizes this mirroring through cinematography, using framing, lighting, and spatial design to show the internal and external isolation shared by Victor and his creation. Additional minor subplots, including Victor's strained interactions with colleagues, secret letters from concerned family members, and subtle hallucinations reflecting guilt, enrich the narrative by showing how obsession can distort perception and alienate the individual from society. The creature, increasingly aware of his own power and limitations, begins a series of confrontations with Victor, seeking answers, recognition, and justice. Each encounter is charged with moral and emotional tension, exploring themes of accountability, identity, and the nature of existence. Del Toro's direction ensures that these confrontations are as much psychological as they are physical. The creature's dialogue reflects a sophisticated understanding of language and philosophy, as he challenges Victor to consider the implications of creating life without assuming responsibility for it. These scenes are among the most poignant of the film, with Jacob Elordi conveying a mixture of anger, sorrow, and longing, portraying a being whose intellect and emotional depth surpass societal expectations of morality and empathy. The film allows audiences to inhabit the creature's perspective, experiencing both his pain and his curiosity, highlighting how a being with moral awareness can still be driven by loneliness and despair. Minor symbolic interactions, such as the creature touching a candle flame or listening to wind in empty corridors, communicate his growing self-awareness and philosophical reflections on mortality, existence, and human cruelty. Victor's personal life continues to deteriorate under the weight of his creation's influence. Elizabeth, despite her compassion, grows increasingly concerned about Victor's obsession, attempting to anchor him to a sense of morality and human connection that he increasingly neglects. Tragedy strikes when William, Victor's younger brother, is killed under circumstances indirectly linked to the creature's actions. This death serves as a catalyst for Victor, compelling him to confront the tangible consequences of his ambition. The creature, though intelligent and reflective, is also driven by profound loneliness and anger, making his pursuit of Victor as much about seeking acknowledgement as enacting vengeance. The narrative emphasizes that the moral failing lies not merely in the creature's actions but in Victor's initial abandonment and failure to guide his creation. Del Toro stages these tragic events with visual and emotional intensity, underscoring the ripple effects of neglect and hubris. Additional subplots, such as the creature discovering remnants of Victor's childhood, serve to deepen his connection to his maker, reinforcing the intertwined fates and psychological complexity of both characters. Frankenstein, 2025, begins with a desolate, storm-tossed landscape, the sky black with thunderclouds, and the distant echo of rolling waves against jagged cliffs. The camera sweeps across the rugged terrain before settling on a dimly lit laboratory, filled with the flickering glow of candles, the hiss of mysterious apparatus, and the scent of chemicals burning faintly in the air. It is here that Victor Frankenstein, played by Oscar Isaac, works tirelessly, consumed by grief, obsession, and ambition. From the opening sequence, the audience understands that Victor is not merely a scientist but a man haunted by loss, driven to undo the finality of death. The story establishes its central tension immediately, Victor's yearning to create life, a yearning rooted not only in curiosity but in an inability to accept mortality. His meticulous attention to his work, the intricate sketches of human anatomy pinned across his walls, the jars of preserved specimens, and the humming machines all serve to illustrate the magnitude of his obsession. Victor's obsession is further complicated by the memory of his family, particularly his younger brother William and his fiancée Elizabeth Lavenza. Flashbacks show the family's warmth and tenderness, creating a stark contrast to the cold, calculated precision of his scientific endeavors. These early moments allow the audience to feel the weight of Victor's choices, they are not made in a vacuum, and the consequences of his ambition will ripple outward, affecting everyone he loves. The tension between human connection and intellectual obsession forms the emotional core of the narrative, and Del Toro frames this tension visually by juxtaposing the intimate spaces of the Frankenstein household with the cavernous, mechanical spaces of Victor's laboratory. The first act also introduces the creature, portrayed with a combination of practical effects and motion capture performance by Jacob Elordi. Unlike many cinematic interpretations, the creature is immediately shown as possessing a nascent consciousness, a being both innocent and aware. The moment of his awakening is a slow, almost reverent sequence, illuminated by flickering candlelight and punctuated by the hum of electricity. Del Toro lingers on the creature's first moments of sensory experience, the feeling of air on skin, the warmth of human touch, the horror of seeing his reflection for the first time. This sequence is both awe-inspiring and tragic, emphasizing the creature's humanity and setting the stage for the emotional arc that dominates the film. As the creature becomes aware of his surroundings, the film explores his encounters with the natural world. He stumbles through forests, streams, and abandoned villages, observing human activity from a distance. Del Toro gives the audience access to the creature's point of view, allowing us to feel his curiosity, fear, and growing understanding of the human condition. These sequences highlight the creature's dual nature, his innocence and his growing sense of isolation. Every interaction, whether with animals, villagers, or the environment itself, is layered with meaning, reflecting the themes of empathy and rejection that will guide the story. Meanwhile, Victor's moral and ethical boundaries begin to unravel. His interactions with mentors, colleagues, and family reveal a man increasingly consumed by his ambition. Scenes with Professor Kremp and other scientific authorities show Victor debating the theoretical and moral implications of his work, often clashing with those who warn him of the dangers of playing God. These dialogues are rich with philosophical undertones, emphasizing Del Toro's interest in the tension between knowledge and responsibility. Victor's obsessive pursuit of creation becomes a reflection of broader human concerns, the desire to overcome limits, the allure of absolute power, and the inevitability of consequences when one disrupts natural order. The creature's initial interactions with humans are marked by misunderstanding and fear. When he first tries to approach villagers, the reactions are violent and terrifying, reinforcing the isolation imposed upon him by society. The film takes care to show that it is not the creature who is inherently monstrous but the world's inability to accept difference. Scenes depicting his attempts at communication, learning language, and understanding human customs are poignant, evoking both sympathy and frustration. Elordi's performance conveys the creature's intelligence and emotional depth, allowing the audience to see the tragedy of his existence, a being capable of love, reflection, and moral thought, condemned to solitude by superficial judgments. Victor's relationship with Elizabeth Lavenza is central to the narrative's emotional tension. Mia Goth portrays Elizabeth not merely as a love interest but as a moral compass and emotional anchor for Victor. Their conversations range from tender moments of affection to heated debates about Victor's secrecy and obsession. Elizabeth's perspective provides a counterbalance to Victor's single-mindedness, highlighting the human cost of his ambitions. These interactions are often set in warm, intimate settings, candlelit rooms, sunlit gardens, contrasting with the cold, shadowed spaces of Victor's laboratory and reinforcing the thematic dichotomy between creation and human connection. The film's cinematography, handled with meticulous attention by Dan Lawson, plays a key role in conveying mood and theme. Lighting shifts subtly between the warmth of human intimacy and the stark, almost surreal quality of the laboratory sequences. Shadows and reflections are used not only for aesthetic effect but also to symbolize inner conflict, duality, and the ambiguity of morality. The use of color is deliberate, muted, earthy tones dominate the world of the creature, reflecting his isolation, while deeper, more saturated colors mark moments of intense emotion or revelation. Every frame is composed to reinforce both narrative and psychological tension, immersing the audience in the gothic atmosphere Del Toro is renowned for. This first portion of the story establishes the core themes of creation, responsibility, empathy, and isolation while laying the groundwork for the dramatic conflicts that will follow. The second act escalates tension as the creature begins to confront the consequences of Victor's ambition more directly, leading to sequences of both horror and profound emotional resonance. The narrative explores the moral ambiguity of both creator and creation, asking whether monstrosity lies in physical form or in the choices one makes, a question that drives the remainder of the film. In the extended scenes of the third act, every gesture, line, and environmental detail becomes a vessel for thematic and emotional resonance. One particularly powerful sequence occurs after Victor's initial collapse during the storm atop the mountain peak. Guillermo del Toro deliberately slows the pacing, allowing the camera to linger on Victor's trembling hands as he attempts to steady himself against the jagged rock face. The juxtaposition of the natural elements, howling wind, pelting rain, and rolling thunder, with Victor's frailty reinforces the narrative's central tension, the overwhelming force of creation and consequence against human hubris. Each lightning strike is timed to echo both Victor's moral shock and the creature's own perception of his creator's vulnerability. Here, Del Toro's approach blends cinematic spectacle with philosophical weight, making the environment a reflection of both internal and external conflict. The creature's approach in this sequence is equally symbolic. Emerging from the shadows, his movements are deliberate and measured, emphasizing intelligence and moral awareness. Jacob Elordi embodies a duality, physical strength and towering presence, but tempered by visible restraint and emotional depth. Every expression, the subtle tightening of jaw muscles, the brief pause before speech, the tilt of the head, conveys ethical reflection, sorrow, and even hesitation. Dialogue in this moment is sparse but loaded with significance. The creature's words, expanded from Shelley's text, express not only grief and anger but also a profound ethical inquiry: why must the one who gives life escape accountability? Must creation always suffer for the ambition of its maker? This line encapsulates the central moral tension of the film, emphasizing responsibility, justice, and empathy. Visual symbolism in this scene is pervasive. The storm acts as a physical manifestation of chaos and moral turbulence, while the fractured mountaintop reflects the shattered ethical landscape Victor has created. Del Toro frames shots to often position the creature above Victor, highlighting the inversion of power, the moral authority of the created over the creator. Subtle use of reflections in puddles and wet rocks further reinforces themes of duality, self-awareness, and mirrored responsibility, consistent motifs throughout the film. Shadows envelop Victor's form while the creature remains partially illuminated, reinforcing the central argument: intellectual brilliance without moral responsibility leads to isolation, suffering, and eventual collapse. Minor yet pivotal interludes deepen the narrative texture. In one extended sequence, the creature retraces his early observations of human behavior in villages, reflecting on how prejudice and fear shaped his life. Del Toro revisits these moments in montage form, intercutting past and present, allowing audiences to empathize with the creature's transformation from naive curiosity to morally conscious being. The careful orchestration of sound enhances the psychological experience: village chatter, footsteps on cobblestones, the rustle of clothing, interspersed with haunting low strings, creates an immersive emotional landscape. This technique reinforces the idea that the creature's identity and morality were molded not only by Victor's actions but also by societal rejection. Dialogue throughout the third act is meticulously crafted to convey layered meaning. Victor's speech is fragmented, reflecting cognitive overload and emotional breakdown. He oscillates between denial, rationalization, and ultimate acknowledgement of wrongdoing. For example, Victor confesses, "I sought to surpass the laws of life, yet in doing so, I have violated the very essence of it. I have brought forth suffering where none should exist." Such lines mirror Shelley's philosophical inquiries but are delivered in cinematic context, with pacing, tone, and visual framing designed to heighten empathy and dramatic intensity. The creature's response, imbued with both sorrow and reason, further elevates the moral complexity, challenging audiences to question the definitions of justice, accountability, and humanity. Comparing these sequences with Shelley's novel reveals deliberate narrative expansion and adaptation. In the original text, climactic confrontations often occur off-page or are recounted through letters and Victor's narration, leaving much of the creature's interiority implicit. Del Toro brings the creature's consciousness to the forefront, allowing viewers direct access to his thoughts, emotions, and ethical reasoning. This shift transforms the narrative from a cautionary tale of scientific hubris into a nuanced exploration of morality, alienation, and the societal consequences of fear and prejudice. Additionally, while Shelley emphasizes Victor's obsessive intellectual ambition, Del Toro visually externalizes psychological turmoil through environmental cues, cinematography, and music, creating a fully immersive sensory experience that complements textual fidelity with cinematic innovation. Technical mastery in this act also extends to prosthetics, makeup, and costume. The creature's design evolves to reflect emotional and ethical growth. Subtle changes, refined facial contours, enhanced mobility, and expressive eye design, signal increasing intelligence, self-awareness, and emotional depth, while still evoking the uncanny. Victor's appearance, conversely, deteriorates. Disheveled hair, strained musculature, and tattered clothing mirror moral and physical exhaustion. These visual cues allow viewers to interpret character evolution even in moments of minimal dialogue, reinforcing the film's continuous dialogue between image, narrative, and theme. The act's minor moments of introspection and environmental interaction further reinforce thematic depth. The creature, observing natural phenomena, birds taking flight, rivers flowing, sun breaking through clouds, contemplates freedom, isolation, and the consequences of unnatural creation. These sequences are accompanied by subtle musical motifs, soft piano, harmonics, and lingering strings, blending with environmental sounds to create an almost meditative rhythm. In parallel, Victor's solitude within storm-lashed landscapes emphasizes futility and loss, a cinematic reflection of his moral and existential failure. These interleaved sequences create a rhythm that alternates between reflection and confrontation, enhancing narrative pacing while deepening emotional engagement. The final resolution emphasizes ambiguity and philosophical reflection. The creature, having confronted Victor and witnessed his demise, faces a choice: vengeance or transcendence. Del Toro opts for an ambiguous closure, portraying the creature standing atop a cliff as dawn breaks, the world awash in both light and shadow. This visual metaphor communicates liberation, moral awareness, and the ongoing search for identity, leaving audiences to ponder the ethical dimensions of creation, justice, and empathy. The choice diverges subtly from Shelley, who depicts the creature's departure without fully resolving ethical or emotional tensions, allowing the film to combine narrative closure with open-ended moral reflection, enhancing its impact for modern viewers. Reception of the film further underscores its resonance. Critics highlighted the film's ability to merge gothic horror with philosophical inquiry, praising both its visual splendor and emotional depth. Jacob Elordi's performance, in particular, was lauded for conveying intelligence, vulnerability, and ethical reasoning. Discussions in academic and cinematic circles emphasize the creature as a model for exploring moral philosophy, social prejudice, and the ethics of scientific advancement. Reviews frequently contrasted Del Toro's adaptation with earlier films, noting the innovative foregrounding of the creature's perspective and the integration of environmental symbolism, sound design, and cinematography to elevate both narrative and thematic depth. Audience responses reflected similar appreciation, emphasizing empathy for the creature and engagement with moral questions, establishing the film as a culturally and intellectually significant adaptation. Global reception and distribution further enhanced the film's impact. After premiering at the Venice Film Festival and limited theatrical release in October 2025, the film's Netflix debut in November 2025 enabled broad accessibility. Viewership data indicated strong international interest, particularly in European and North American markets, where appreciation for literary adaptations and Gothic aesthetics remains high. Academic analysis, film studies curricula, and online discourse examined the ethical, philosophical, and technical aspects, reinforcing the film's position as both entertainment and subject of critical reflection. The combination of commercial reach and scholarly engagement highlights Del Toro's success in crafting a work that resonates across audiences while preserving literary fidelity and cinematic innovation. As the story moves toward its resolution, the narrative focuses on the consequences of the creature's actions and Victor's responses, culminating in a series of emotionally charged and philosophically resonant sequences. After Victor reluctantly begins to confront his responsibilities, the creature escalates its demands, not through mindless violence but through pointed moral reasoning and articulate expression. Del Toro emphasizes dialogue and internal reflection in these sequences, allowing both creator and creation to articulate their grief, anger, and philosophical perspectives. The confrontation between Victor and the creature is staged in a series of environments that reflect the emotional tone of the scenes: a crumbling mountain laboratory, snow-laden cliffs, and stormy, windswept landscapes that externalize the inner turmoil of both characters. In these final confrontations, Victor is forced to reckon with the human cost of his ambition. Scenes depicting his family's grief over William's death, Elizabeth's despair, and the broader societal fear of the unknown all converge to highlight the moral consequences of his choices. Victor's attempts to reason with the creature and to defend his original actions are juxtaposed with his growing recognition of ethical failure, demonstrating the complexity of his character. He is neither a pure villain nor an innocent victim but a morally nuanced figure whose brilliance is inseparable from his hubris. Del Toro's portrayal avoids simplifying Victor into a stereotypical mad scientist. Instead, he is humanized, capable of reflection, regret, and fleeting moments of compassion. The creature, having endured repeated rejection and trauma, confronts Victor not only with emotional intensity but with a carefully articulated ethical argument. It highlights Victor's failure to provide guidance, companionship, or moral responsibility, framing its own actions as responses to abandonment rather than inherent cruelty. This philosophical framing elevates the narrative from a story of horror to a meditation on ethical responsibility, moral reasoning, and the consequences of societal neglect. The audience is invited to consider questions such as, what is owed to a sentient being created by human hands? To what extent does society bear responsibility for the marginalized or the different? And how does neglect breed consequences that are as predictable as they are tragic? The climax of the film is executed in a sequence that blends action, emotional intensity, and symbolic imagery. The confrontation occurs amid a thunderstorm, symbolizing both the raw power of nature and the turbulent emotions of the characters. Lightning illuminates the figures of Victor and the creature, reinforcing the visual metaphor of creation, destruction, and revelation. Their struggle is both physical and moral. Victor attempts to prevent further tragedy, while the creature demands recognition and justice. Del Toro's cinematography emphasizes this duality, alternating between sweeping, majestic shots of the landscape and intimate close-ups that capture the psychological and emotional stakes. In this way, the final confrontation serves as a culmination of narrative, thematic, and visual storytelling, tying together decades of character development and philosophical exploration. Elizabeth's role in the resolution is equally significant. In earlier parts of the narrative, she represents both moral conscience and emotional grounding for Victor. In the climax, her interactions, whether direct or implied, underscore the human cost of Victor's obsession. Her fate, though tragic, is portrayed with dignity and narrative purpose, emphasizing that the consequences of neglect and hubris extend beyond the central figures to those who are indirectly affected. Del Toro's treatment of Elizabeth deviates from traditional adaptations where female characters are often passive or merely symbolic. Here, her presence reinforces the story's ethical and emotional complexity, highlighting the stakes of human connection and moral responsibility. Following the climactic confrontation, the narrative shifts to reflection and resolution. Victor's ultimate recognition of his failures is depicted not in melodramatic confession but through subtle emotional expression, showing a man grappling with the consequences of his choices. The creature's response, while maintaining emotional weight, emphasizes autonomy and moral reasoning. It chooses a path that acknowledges both the harm caused and the possibility of moral reflection, leaving the audience with a sense of ethical continuity and philosophical contemplation. The film deliberately leaves certain aspects of the creature's fate ambiguous, encouraging viewers to engage with the moral and existential questions that have defined the narrative. Production anecdotes reveal the care and precision with which these sequences were executed. The storm-laden climax required complex coordination of practical effects, lighting, and sound design. Cinematographer Dan Lawson worked closely with Guillermo del Toro to ensure that each lightning flash, shadow, and environmental detail reinforced the narrative's psychological and ethical dimensions. Similarly, the creature's movements were enhanced through a combination of Jacob Elordi's performance, motion capture technology, and practical effects, creating a figure that is both physically imposing and emotionally expressive. Costume designer Kate Hawley incorporated subtle symbolic details into both Victor and the creature's wardrobe, using texture, color, and form to reflect psychological states and thematic resonance. The musical score by Alexander Desplat underscores these sequences with a combination of orchestral intensity, subdued motifs, and thematic leitmotifs, reinforcing both emotional and moral stakes. Comparisons to earlier Frankenstein adaptations illuminate the unique qualities of Del Toro's version. Whereas Boris Karloff's portrayal in the 1931 Universal classic emphasized external monstrosity and horror, Del Toro's creature embodies both physical presence and philosophical depth. Similarly, Kenneth Branagh's 1994 adaptation focused on spectacle and romanticized tragedy, whereas Del Toro balances spectacle with sustained ethical inquiry and character-driven narrative. The attention to both the creature's intellectual and emotional development, as well as Victor's moral complexity, distinguishes this adaptation, ensuring that the film engages audiences on multiple levels, visually, emotionally, and philosophically. The narrative's thematic richness is further enhanced by recurrent visual motifs and symbolism. The recurring imagery of lightning and electricity symbolizes both life and the power of human knowledge, while snow and isolation underscore themes of solitude, rejection, and ethical contemplation. Shadows and chiaroscuro lighting are used to reflect moral ambiguity, while crumbling architecture mirrors the fragility of human ambition and the impermanence of creations left unchecked by ethical consideration. The interplay of visual symbolism, character development, and narrative progression ensures that every element of the film reinforces its central themes. In the denouement, the film emphasizes reflection, ethical inquiry, and the consequences of human action. Victor's death is portrayed with solemnity, reflecting both the culmination of his moral and intellectual journey and the personal cost of hubris. The creature's final contemplative moments serve as a meditation on identity, moral responsibility, and the human condition, inviting the audience to consider the broader implications of the narrative. Del Toro's conclusion avoids simplistic resolution. Instead, it embraces ambiguity and complexity, reflecting the ethical and emotional richness of Mary Shelley's original novel while providing a cinematic experience that is immersive, thought-provoking, and emotionally resonant. Throughout the film, Del Toro's directorial vision demonstrates a commitment to creating a fully realized world in which moral, emotional, and philosophical questions are inseparable from narrative and visual storytelling. The careful integration of performance, production design, cinematography, sound, and music ensures that every element contributes to the story's ethical and emotional impact. By prioritizing character development, ethical reflection, and visual storytelling, Del Toro transforms a familiar tale of horror into a comprehensive exploration of human ambition, responsibility, empathy, and the consequences of creation. The impact of the 2025 Frankenstein adaptation extends beyond cinema, prompting renewed interest in Mary Shelley's original text and in the broader ethical questions it raises. The film has become a point of discussion in literary, philosophical, and scientific circles, with critics and audiences analyzing its treatment of moral responsibility, human ambition, and the nature of sentient life. Its portrayal of the creature as an ethically reflective, emotionally complex being challenges audiences to reconsider cultural perceptions of monstrosity, difference, and moral agency. Victor's portrayal as a morally complex yet flawed figure similarly invites reflection on the ethical dimensions of scientific and technological advancement in the modern world. In conclusion, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, 2025, represents a landmark in both literary adaptation and cinematic storytelling. Its meticulous attention to visual, musical, and narrative detail, combined with its exploration of ethical, philosophical, and emotional themes, sets it apart from previous adaptations. The film balances spectacle with introspection, horror with empathy, and ambition with moral reflection, creating a narrative that resonates on multiple levels. Through the intertwined journeys of Victor Frankenstein and the creature, audiences are invited to contemplate the nature of creation, the responsibilities of knowledge, and the enduring human quest for connection, understanding, and moral clarity. It stands as both a faithful homage to Mary Shelley's novel and a visionary cinematic achievement, ensuring that the story of Frankenstein continues to challenge, inspire, and captivate audiences for generations to come. As the story progresses into its second act, the creature's awareness deepens, and he begins to wrestle with complex emotions, curiosity, longing, confusion, and rage. He observes human interactions, noting the subtleties of language, expression, and social hierarchy, but always remains an outsider. The villagers' fear and hostility reinforce his sense of otherness, and these repeated rejections shape his emerging worldview. Del Toro takes care to portray the creature as intellectually vibrant and emotionally rich,